Kia ora สวัสดีค่ะสวัสดีค่ะคุณพ่อคุณแม่ผู้ปกครองน้องๆนักเรียนทุกคนนะคะจารุวรรณ พงษ์จารุวัฒน์ค่ะเป็น Director of Education จาก Education New Zealand สถานทูตนิวซีแลนด์ประจำประเทศไทยนะคะขออนุญาตเป็นตัวแทนกล่าวต้อนรับทุกท่านเข้าสู่ Jen's Live Session New Zealand School ในวันนี้นะคะนิวซีแลนด์เป็นประเทศที่นอกจากความสวยงามเป็นอันดับหนึ่งแล้วยังเป็นประเทศที่เหมาะอย่างยิ่งที่จะให้น้องๆนักเรียนไปเรียนต่อในระดับมัธยมศึกษากันนะคะนอกจากเรื่องความปลอดภัยที่เป็นจุดแข็งของเราแล้ว The Economist Intelligence Unit ยังจัดอันดับให้นิวซีแลนด์เนี่ยเป็นประเทศอันดับที่1ของโลกเลยนะคะที่เตรียมความพร้อมนักเรียนสู่อนาคตได้ดีที่สุดในโลกจากประเทศที่พูดภาษาอังกฤษเป็นภาษาหลัก3ปีซ้อนเลยนะคะตั้งแต่ปี 2017 นอกจากนี้แล้วโรงเรียนมัธยมของนิวซีแลนด์นะคะยังเป็นสถานที่ที่สามารถดึงศักยภาพของนักเรียนแต่ละคนออกมาได้อย่างดีเยี่ยมที่สุดแล้วนอกจากนี้เนี่ยยังเป็นการสอนแบบเน้นปฏิบัติจริงออกไปดูนอกห้องเรียนจริงมีกิจกรรมนอกห้องเรียนมากมายนะคะแล้วก็ยังสอนเด็กๆเนี่ยให้ฝึกคิดฝึกวิเคราะห์เรียกว่า critical thinking skill ทำให้เด็กๆเนี่ยเมื่อโตแล้วรู้จักแก้ไขปัญหาเฉพาะหน้าได้อย่างดีเยี่ยมอีกด้วยที่สำคัญที่สุดเนี่ยเจนเนี่ยเป็นตัวแทนนะคะการศึกษาที่ได้รับการรับรองจากรัฐบาลนิวซีแลนด์หรือ Education New Zealand หรือเป็นหนึ่งในเอเจนต์ที่อยู่ในลิสต์ของ ENSA เอเจนต์ที่มีเพียงไม่กี่แห่งในประเทศไทยอีกด้วยนะคะเด็กๆจะได้รับการดูแลอย่างดีทั้งก่อนแล้วก็ไปนิวซีแลนด์แน่นอนนะคะทางสถานทูตนิวซีแลนด์ก็รอคอยที่จะต้อนรับน้องๆทุกคนกลับไปเรียนที่นิวซีแลนด์อย่างเร็วที่สุดนะคะก็รอคอยน้องๆนักเรียนให้ไปเรียนที่นิวซีแลนด์กันเยอะๆนะคะโชคดีค่ะสวัสดีค่ะขอบคุณมากค่ะ
It's the middle of New Zealand, but it's far from middle New Zealand. It's a centre of science, a centre of education, a centre of innovation, and it's a centre of surprise. It's where some of the best in the world are gathered. It's where thoughts are gathered. It's the hub of business and transport and networks and logistics. It's the hubbub of the city, and it's as far as you can get from the city. It's a place where people meet, minds meet, and ideas flourish. A place where a square is anything but. Where life revolves, people jam, and traffic doesn't. It's a place where you can be right in the middle of everything, and at the same time, right on the edge. It's a place where you could be. Come and join us.
Welcome to Palmerston North Boys High School. I'm David Bovey, the 9th and current rector of the school. Founded in 1902, Palmy Boys is a traditional boys' school whose aim is to develop educated men of outstanding character. As a school, we cherish the values of integrity, industry, humility, pride, respect and courage, and it's those values that we hope to instil in our young men as they go about their daily business here at Palmy Boys. The Palmerston North Boys High School's school vision is to develop educated men of outstanding character, and that for us emphasises two of the key aspects of what we do here at Palmy Boys: a character education and also an emphasis on academic achievement. The school motto, Nihil bone sine labore, nothing achieved without hard work. With hard work, with perseverance, with resilience, our young men will be able to achieve to their potential and do things that they may have only dreamed of when they entered the school gates as a Year 9 student.
Our priority is to assist young men to gain academic qualifications. Our ultimate goal is for you to leave Palmy Boys with an academic qualification which will put you on a pathway to your future career. A structured classroom environment is conducive to young men's academic success, and our NCA assessment results reinforce this approach. Accelerate students perform strongly in Cambridge examinations. A significant number of A-grade passes are achieved in maths and university papers, and the number of scholarship passes achieved by our young men is impressive. The school is fully networked and we are developing e-learning tools and resources for the use of both teachers and students. A wide range of cultural activities are available and participation is strongly encouraged. From drama classes to major stage productions and musicals, from the symphonic, stage and concert bands to the pipe band and rock groups. All Year 9 students doing the school haka compete in the class haka challenge and can join one of the Kapa haka groups. All interested students have the opportunity to join the Pacifica Cultural Performance Group. Visual and creative arts subjects are available at all year levels, as well as opportunities for students to follow their passion in other specialist media.
As a boys' school, we firmly believe in the positive benefits of single-sex education for our young men. Palmy Boys is an environment where the young men are able to grow and learn from their mistakes, where they're held accountable, and when they're encouraged to do their very, very best. One of the things we also emphasise here at Palmy Boys is competition. We know that young men by their very nature are competitive and we seek to encourage that in everything they do.
Palmerston North Boys High School is a proud sporting history. I am indeed proud to be the Director of Sport here at Palmy Boys. The sporting program at the school is supported strongly by our sports development program. Now the sports development program runs through our 5 major codes. The boys have the opportunity to be coached by the best coaches the school has to offer and the best conditioning. They run through some skill sessions during the week and that's supported by a conditioning session every week. The idea is to build the ability of these boys to be able to step up and to play at the highest level on graduation from this program. Now the school offers a lot of capability in terms of facilities. Now we have a number of gyms. I'm presently standing in one of our weight training gyms. We have 3. We have a large indoor heated swimming pool that's operable all year round. We have fields that are accessible for our major codes. We have access to turfs. We are indeed blessed with the facilities we've got in terms of trying to grow the boys who walk through the gate.
We're very proud of the committed staff we have here at Palmy Boys, more than 100 classroom teachers, and every single one of those teachers is involved in the school's co-curricular program, and that for us is vital. The relationships we can create with young men and build upon on the sports fields, on the stage, and all sorts of activities carry over into the classroom relationships, and we know that young men thrive in an educational setting where relationships are positive. The Old Boys community is a strong one and very, very supportive of the school, and we're proud to say we have links to Old Boys all over the world who enjoy following the achievements of the young men currently at their old school. It's easy to feel proud of Palmy Boys, a school with a lot of tradition, a fantastic reputation not only in the local community but nationwide, and those young men who come to Palmy Boys and who embrace the ethos of the school and get involved and throw themselves headlong into life at Palmy Boys will achieve success. We also hope that our young men will leave the school at the end of their time here and go out into the community as good men of good character who will become ideal fathers, husbands and members of society. And for us, that's a real focus.
สวัสดีครับวันนี้เรามี มาคุยกันนะครับแล้วก็เป็นโอกาสพิเศษเลยเพราะว่าวันนี้ได้คุยกับทั้ง2โรงเรียนเลยนะครับทั้ง2โรงเรียนนี้เป็นโรงเรียนที่มีชื่อเสียงมานานแล้วนะครับโดยเฉพาะอย่างยิ่งการดูแลนักเรียนไทยนะครับสำหรับวันนี้เราจะมาคุยกับโรงเรียน Palmerston North Boy แล้วก็ Palmerston North Girl นะครับโดยเราจะแบ่งเป็น2ส่วนเนาะช่วงแรกเราจะคุยกับ Palmerston North Boy ก่อนโดยวันนี้เรามีคุณลันส์ซึ่งเป็น Director of International Students นะครับมาพูดคุยกับเรานะครับในส่วนที่2เราจะมีการพูดคุยกับ Director of International Students ก็คือคุณคริสตินที่ดูแลในส่วนของ Palmerston North Girl นะครับ How are you Lance?
I'm well, thank you. Yeah, it's starting to get a bit warmer in New Zealand at the moment, so we're
nice.
pretty happy about that. Yeah.
Because right now it's getting into the summer season, right?
So we're heading towards spring. We're not out of winter yet now. And I just came to school this morning, and I saw the ski team heading up to the mountain to go skiing this morning. So that was at 5:30 this morning. They're pretty keen.
Okay, that's good. That's good. It's getting hotter, but it's going to be winter soon, I think, right?
It isn't. Oh, no, it's just been through winter. So we're heading towards spring now, and then summer, of course.
Oh, I see. Cool. All right. Okay, Lance, why don't we start with the first question in general topics first about the boarding school and host family school. Normally for Thai students and Thai parents keep asking, should they send the students to the boarding school or the host family school? Do you have any kind of suggestion about between these two options? Because Palmerston North Boy offer both options as well.
That's right. And what I suggest to parents, and when I speak to parents, is that the students that are very confident is that they are the ones that should be confident, they like doing activities. They're the ones that should be looking at hostel accommodation. So their English is good, they're happy to speak to other boys, they want to play some of the sports. And we'll talk about sports a bit later, but in a lot of the New Zealand schools is that we have sports for not only expert players but also beginners. So we have 40 basketball teams at our school, and so you can actually choose whether you play things socially or you play them competitively as well. So boarding is like I said before, for those boys that are confident, they want to try and make friends, they're able to support themselves independently, because often although there are a lot of staff there are different staff on every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Thai students normally afraid of being in the boarding school because the boarding school in Thailand is not quite there's so many rules or that kind of things. But what do you think?
There's still a lot of rules, as boarding schools need lots of rules to make sure that everyone can live together. But I think what you'll find here is that, like, Thai students actually like boarding. We're probably in between Thai and students from Hong Kong. That would be our biggest students that want to come into our boarding hostel. And Thai students do very well there, and they are, especially those ones, like I said before, that might be interested in playing a little bit of rugby and basketball. They're not reliant on being looked after all the time. So it's one of those good things, and it's quite hard for the students, especially when they're a bit younger in the hostel, because there's lots of rules around cell phones, there's lots of rules around jobs they have to do to be part of the hostel, and it's a good thing for them to actually do those things, because as they get older there becomes more responsibility and independence.
Right. Lance, you mentioned about the rules about the mobile phone or that kind of things. For the border students, do they still need to hand in the phone during the day? So
from years 9 to 11, so years 13 years old to 15 years old, is that they hand their phones in every night. When they get to year 12 and 13, they get to keep their phones overnight. However, I mean, if the masters are walking around and seeing that students are on their phones all night, then there may be discussions around whether they can actually control themselves, as parents would do.
Okay. And Lance, normally, how about during the day? Do they have the phone with themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So throughout the whole day, we don't allow students to use phones at Palmerston North Boys High School throughout the day. We think that although the students will have their phones with them to contact their parents after school or to contact their friends after school, contact their jobs, we don't let them use their phones if they're sitting around at lunchtime. And I think, you know, when you come to our school eventually, is that we can, you'll see the boys, rather than sitting around on their phones, they're actually playing games, they're doing sport, they're playing handball, they're running around the school. And it's quite usual for me to see the boys doing that. But when I visit other schools and I see a whole lot of students sitting around in a group on their phones, it's actually a little bit depressing, to be fair, because we know as adults how often we're reliant on technology for our work. The boys and the girls don't actually need that.
So it means that during the day, the students will have the phone with themselves, but are not allowed to use it.
Correct.
Right?
And so for
Okay.
our international students, if it's vital that they use it, we have our international office where our homestay, our accommodation coordinator and our dean work. And so they can go contact their parents or their friends or their homestays if they need to in there. But yeah, they're not allowed to use their phones throughout the day.
I see. Got you. Let me summarize in Thai a little bit before we move on. All right.
Sure.
สำหรับผมถามคุณลันส์นะครับว่านักเรียนประเภทไหนที่ควรจะอยู่กับ boarding หรือว่าอยู่กับ post นะครับจริงๆแล้วคุณลันส์บอกว่านักเรียนไทยเนี่ยถือว่าเป็นรวมถึงนักเรียนฮ่องกงด้วยถือว่าเป็นนักเรียนที่ประสบความสำเร็จมากนะครับในการอยู่กับ boarding เนาะจริงๆโดยทั่วไปเนี่ยนักเรียนไทยมักจะกลัวนะว่าการอยู่ boarding จะต้องมีกฎระเบียบต่างๆมากมายรวมถึงในไทยอาจจะมีโรงเรียนประจำที่ดูอาจจะไม่ค่อยน่าไปเท่าไหร่อะไรเงี้ยบางคนก็จะกังวลอะไรเงี้ยนะครับซึ่งจริงๆแล้วเด็กไทยที่ไปเนี่ยก็ถือว่าแฮปปี้ดีแล้วก็ประสบความสำเร็จเพราะว่าเด็กที่ไปมักจะโอเคภาษาอังกฤษอาจจะค่อนข้างดีหรือบางทีถ้าไม่ดีก็การได้อยู่กับเพื่อนก็ได้ใช้ภาษาอังกฤษอยู่ตลอดเวลานะครับแล้วนอกจากนั้นก็คือน้องๆยังมีโอกาสได้เล่นกีฬาได้ทำกิจกรรมต่างๆตลอดเวลาเพราะว่าโรงเรียนเนี่ยเขาจะมีกิจกรรมเพียบไปหมดเลยนะครับในโรงเรียนนะในขณะที่เด็กๆที่อยากที่จะอยู่กับโฮสต์ก็อาจจะมีความรักอิสระมากขึ้นนะครับอาจจะอยากที่จะอยู่ได้ด้วยตัวเองอยู่กับโฮสต์แฟมิลี่อยู่ในห้องคนเดียวอะไรอย่างเงี้ยก็อันนี้ก็จะเป็นอีกออปชันหนึ่งที่คนไทยนิยมนะครับแต่อย่างไรก็ตามสำหรับเด็กผู้ชายเนาะที่ชอบเล่นกีฬาชอบทำกิจกรรมต่างๆการอยู่บอร์ดดิ้งเนี่ยก็จะเป็นออปชันที่ดีไม่น้อยเลยนะครับแล้วก็ส่วนเรื่องของการกฎระเบียบต่างๆที่เด็กไทยมักจะกลัวก็คือการถูกยึดมือถือนะครับซึ่งในโรงเรียนของ Palmerston North Boy เนี่ยในระหว่างวันเนี่ยเขาจะให้มือถือแหละแต่ไว้ใช้ยามฉุกเฉินจะไม่ได้ใช้เล่นเกมอะไรต่างๆเหล่านี้นะครับแต่ว่าถ้าตอนกลางคืนเนี่ยก็คือจะต้องคืนให้กับคุณครูนะครับในส่วนของ Year 9 ถึง Year 11 ส่วน Year 12 และ 13 เนี่ยเขาก็จะให้เด็กๆรับผิดชอบด้วยตัวเองนะครับนะโอเคLance, for the next question, do you allow the students to go to the town by themselves during the weekdays?
Yeah, absolutely. And for boarding, they have to sign out of the hostel and sign back in again when they leave. And that's just simply, they can actually do that either through their phones or through the iPad that's at the hostel. Now, if they're staying for lengthier periods of time, so for example, it's a school day here today, is that if they were going into the city, then they should be back by dinner time, which is around about 6 p.m.
Should be back by dinner time.
By dinner time, yeah. So, but if they have a sports practice or music practice, or they have tutoring, then they can take that leave for that. And then for the hostel students especially, they'll just in the morning ask for a dinner to be saved for them, and they'll come back and have their meal later on in the evening. Homestays is far more flexible, and they just and it's one of the things through our orientation process is making sure that the communication with a homestay is quite clear. And you know, we often run into problems with the homestays where the boys and the homestays aren't communicating clearly, and so that's what we have our accommodation coordinator, and the same for the girls' school is the homestay and accommodation coordinators are there to make sure that the bridge between the new students and even the old students is very clear, and that everyone knows what is happening.
Okay, Lance, can you tell us a little bit about the timetable, maybe roughly? About, for example, during the day, during the weekdays, they just study and then do some activities, whatever, and then Saturday and Sunday, please.
Yeah, sure. So the school day, they have to be at school by 8:40 in the morning, which is, And then, of course, in Palmerston North is usually just a small trip away for a lot of the boys, and maybe 10 or 15 minutes drive at the very most. Some of the students will walk to school that live locally. Some of our international boys, we have a Thai boy that lives, or two Thai boys that live on a farm, and they're very happy out there. They feed the lambs, and that's still only a 20-25 minute bus ride away. So I mean, the students that are looking for that sort of experience to actually live on a farm is a great experience for those students from Thailand. So they have to arrive by 8:40, and then we have homeroom time. Every day at school we have assembly. So, and that's the reason why we have assembly is more to do with being able to celebrate student success. So students that have done well, teams that have done well, we can put them up in front and sort of create sort of a role model, so to speak, in terms of what students want to be. Right. After that, we have two classes, which are around about 50 minutes long. And then we have a break for morning tea, and then another two classes, the same length. And then we have our lunchtime. So the students that are in College House, or our boarding facility, will walk back to College House, and that's the College House is one football field away from the school. So it's only 100 meters away. They'll go back for lunch there, and then they can come back to school after they've finished lunch. If they have tutorials or lunchtime or sports practices, they'll get a packed lunch and bring that back to school. So it's all pretty simple. After lunchtime is quite unique for us. We have what's called sustained silent reading after lunch every day. And so that means that students choose their own books and they will read for 15 minutes, no matter what class they're in. If they're in a physics class, or if they're in a calculus class or a sports class, every student sits down and reads for 15 minutes, because we see the value in students actually reading books for pleasure and not being on their phones all the time. And it's actually, for teachers as well, it's actually really nice. You don't have to worry. You put your computer down and you read the book. And it's actually a really refreshing thing. And still some boys struggle with it, but it's surprising to see how many move on with it. The day finishes for us around 3:30 p.m. And from there, students might be able to go home. And a lot of our students, they won't have maybe trainings after school or activities after school. They'll go home and they'll be home by 4 p.m. And there's no extra classes, there's no tutoring and things like that for a lot of New Zealand students. But if they have trainings, they can go to trainings. We have badminton. I think we have over 60 co-curricular activities at school that they can choose from. So that's not sport. It's also music. It's also culture, drama. And Christine mentioned that earlier on about how we have combined drama. And drama is, and I don't know whether she mentioned this, but drama is probably one of the activities that we'd promote for our international students to try and do the most. To speak in front of an audience in English, they will gain so much from it. So for any of your listeners, and it's a very, very hard step for them to make, try and do drama if you can, especially if you come here when you're young.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
so how about, how about Saturday and Sunday then?
Oh, so sorry. Saturday and Sunday is times either with their homestay families. The students that are in the hostel, they might choose to take town leave for the day. Lots of them will have sport. So basketball is Friday nights, soccer and rugby are on the Saturday. The weekends, I mean, there's golf clubs here as well that students can play golf. And for students, it's only $100 a year to play golf. And it's very cheap for them to do so, easy for them to access, only 5 minutes drive most of the golf courses away from here. And we have two that are very local. So it's really up to them. And some of them will decide to stay in the hostel and maybe watch a movie with their friends. Some will meet up with their friends, and quite often a number of the students will meet at basketball courts and they'll play basketball together. And it's not an organized team, just a whole lot of friends coming together. And it's very easy for them to do so.
Okay. You mentioned the school finished by 3:15, right?
Yeah.
3:15. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so 3:20 is our finishing time. 3:20.
Okay. All right, let me summarize in Thai a little bit before we move on.
Sure.
Okay. สำหรับในส่วนของผมได้ถามเรื่อง timetable ของโรงเรียนนะครับเนื่องจากว่าบางโรงเรียนอาจจะมีเรียนวันเสาร์ด้วยสำหรับโรงเรียนนี้เรียนวันจันทร์ถึงวันศุกร์เท่านั้นนะครับแล้วก็เริ่มเรียนตอน 8:40 เนาะเขาก็จะมี home room มีอะไรต่างๆแล้วก็ มีคลาสนะครับหลังจากนั้นเขาจะมี tea break มี lunch แล้วก็มีทำกิจกรรมต่างๆแล้วก็มี dinner นะครับก็เป็นเรื่องทั่วไปโดยที่โรงเรียนจะจบประมาณช่วงบ่าย 3:20 โดยประมาณนะครับในส่วนของวันเสาร์อาทิตย์เนี่ยเขาก็จะมีลักษณะว่าเป็น free day แหละเป็น lazy day ให้เด็กๆว่าเด็กๆอยากทำกิจกรรมอยากทำเล่นกีฬาเล่นกีฬาอะไรต่างๆหรืออยากจะเที่ยวไปเข้าเมืองก็สามารถทำได้ทั้งหมดเพราะฉะนั้นเหมือนกับว่าวันจันทร์ถึงวันศุกร์ก็โอเคอยู่โรงเรียนนะถามว่าวันจันทร์ถึงวันศุกร์ถ้าจำเป็นต้องเข้าเมืองไปนัดกับเพื่อนอะไรต่างๆก็สามารถทำได้แต่ก็จะต้องมีการ sign in sign out แล้วก็กลับเข้ามากินอาหารเย็นที่โรงเรียนด้วยนะครับ You mentioned about tea break. Is it for the day students as well, staying with the host families?
Yeah, absolutely. So the day students, the ones that live with homestays, their families will provide them a lunch. And so the lunch is provided at home, but there's also a canteen at school where students can buy some things from as well. However, sometimes those things are, for some students, there's some lollies, there's some things, some fizzy drinks that they probably don't need a lot of the time, but that's usually the most popular room in the school is the canteen.
Gotcha. And normally for the boarders, they have breakfast, lunches, and dinner at the school. So lunches and
That's
dinner
right.
will be hot foods, right? Hot meals.
But there's a hot option for breakfast, lunch, or there's a hot option for breakfast. Lots of New Zealand students, as you possibly know, have cereal for breakfast, like the Wheat Bix and the muesli and things like that. But there's also things like beans and eggs and things like that for breakfast as well. So
that's good.
Yeah, there's a hot option everywhere that they go, and quite varied as well. In the dining room, and I mean there is a College House video that shows off some of the facilities on our website and in our prospectus that shows off the facilities that there are.
Okay, so thanks for this, and then we're gonna start showing the presentation and talking about the school and Palmerston as well. Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, ผมขอสรุปเป็นภาษาไทยนิดนึงนะครับตะกี้ผมถามเรื่องอาหารก็ทางโรงเรียนก็จะมีสำหรับนักเรียนประจำเนาะก็จะมีอาหารเช้ากลางวันเย็นก็จะมี hot options ก็คือเป็นอาหารจานร้อนทั้ง3มื้อเลยนะครับส่วนนักเรียนที่เป็นอยู่กับ host family ก็สามารถกินอาหารเช้ากับ host ได้อาหารกลางวันก็จะเป็น pack lunch ส่วนอาหารเย็นก็กลับไปกินกับ host นะครับผม
Just one thing to mention about boarding is for your viewers is that boarding is very popular domestically in New Zealand as well. And for any parents that are considering sending their son boarding, is that it pays, like your boy that's coming to Boys High next year, is to give lots of notice in terms of when he's coming, because we have to try and reserve spots for the students that are coming. Domestically, it's very popular as well as international.
So it means that you mentioned that, okay, that would be the Kiwi students staying in the boarding house as well, not only international students.
Yeah,
okay.
So, and even for international students, if parents want to investigate the option of boarding, is that they should try and reserve a spot quite early, because if you try just 1 or 2 days, 1 or 2 months out, often there won't be any positions at all, especially at the younger age. Year 11 and 12, there's more opportunities, but certainly at the younger ages, it's very challenging.
Gotcha. All right. สำหรับในส่วนนี้คุณลันส์ได้พูดถึงว่าหอพักของโรงเรียนนะครับเป็นที่นิยมโดยเฉพาะในส่วนของนักเรียนกีวีเองก็ตามนะครับเขาก็อยู่กับเลือกที่อยู่กับบอร์ดดิ้งด้วยเช่นกันโดยที่เขาทางนักเรียนกีวีก็จ่ายเหมือนกับเด็กต่างชาติเนาะแต่ว่าอย่างไรก็ตามเนี่ยก็จะบอกว่าการที่ได้อยู่ในหอพักเนี่ยก็จะมีนักเรียนไม่ใช่แต่นักเรียนอินเตอร์แต่มีนักเรียนต่างชาติด้วยสำหรับนักเรียนเยียร์เล็กเนี่ยจะเต็มเร็วมากสำหรับหอพักนะครับเยียร์เด็กโตก็จะมีโอกาสได้มากหน่อยนะครับแต่อย่างไรก็ตามเนี่ยถ้าจะอยู่หอพักเนี่ยที่นั่งที่นอนเนี่ยมันจะไปได้เร็วมากเพราะฉะนั้นถ้าใครสนใจก็อาจจะต้องสมัครเสียแต่เนิ่นๆนะครับOkay, Lance, back to you. You can talk about the presentation, and I may pause you for summarizing in Thai.
Of course. So Palmerston North Boys High School, we're a school of 1,800, and before the pandemic, we had around 70 international students. around probably 10 to 15 students of those are Thai generally. We've always been quite popular in Thailand. Oh,
okay.
So I've spoken earlier about assemblies, and we have assembly every day, and that's all 1,800 boys in there. And like I said, it's a great opportunity for us to celebrate boys being boys and doing well. And whether that be on the sporting field, culturally and academically, is that we make sure that those high achievers stand up in front of their peers so they have something to aspire to. Next slide, please. So New Zealand, and of course we know about the beauty of New Zealand, and I think the thing that for Thailand, and I've been there a number of times, is that the space is the thing that gets the Thai students the most pleasure, and many of the students, although they've come from Bangkok and they've come from very busy cities, they actually enjoy the darkness, they enjoy seeing the stars, they enjoy the quietness, there's no street noise and things like that. So I mean, that's one of the things that we think. And also our hospitality is something we welcome students from every country, and we love to have them here as well. Next slide, please. So Palmerston North is, as you can see, there are not a lot of high rises in Palmerston North, and this is the very centre of the city. So Palmerston North Boys High School is to the left, maybe about 1 kilometre away, and Palmerston Girls High is to the right, probably about 2 kilometres away, which means that we have enough distance that they can't distract each other throughout the day, but it also means that it's a good meeting point for them as well. Now, Palmerston North Boys High School has been, Palmerston North has been declared a WHO safe city, and so from there is that we know that we can feel comfortable about our students walking around the city. We know that we can feel comfortable about them coming home in the evenings as well, independently. However, there are always issues with that, and there is in every community, there are some students, well, not some students, some people that are not what we like. And so through our orientation process, we talk to all of the students about keeping safe, about making sure that their mobile phones are putting away, that they don't carry a lot of money around with them, as we would in any city in the world. Okay, so
Lance, before you move on, may I ask about Palmerston? Do you consider Palmerston as the city or the town?
It's a city, definitely a city. There's 90,000 people here. So a town
90,
is usually, yeah. So, and the other thing about Palmerston North, which I probably have mentioned, is that we have 3 other tertiary institutes here. We have Massey University, which is probably the biggest university in New Zealand. We have UCOL, which is a vocational institution where students can learn to do nursing, they can learn to do graphic design, building. It's quite varied, the vocational school. And then we also have a business school, which is a Japanese university here as well. And that's quite small at the moment because it's relied on international students for a long time. But yeah, usually has been quite popular. And for a number of my Thai friends as well have been there. So yeah, it's a student city as such, and they look after students very well.
Let's talk about the food. There will be so many restaurants there for sure because it's the city, and also the kind of the cinemas or entertainment, right?
So absolutely, I think, and don't quote me on this, but Palmerston North has one of the highest cafe to person ratios in New Zealand, and the variety of ethnic food that students can get is amazing. It's not as cheap as Thailand, obviously, and other Asian countries, but the quality, I'm told, is very good. And my own children will love going out and eating Asian food in Palmerston North. So there's a number of Thai restaurants, Chinese restaurants, Vietnamese. The variety is there, mainly because of the ethnic breakdown that is here with the universities as well, and that has to be catered for.
Thank you.
Cool. So what's quite different from New Zealand to a lot of Asian countries are single-sex schools, and we are firm believers in that boys do better at boys' schools and girls do better at girls' schools. There's less distractions. We can offer subjects and teaching styles that suit the particular genders. And I think that Christine mentioned earlier that we are both the best performing schools throughout the region. And even nationally, we compete very well. Scholarships are our highest examination, and often we are both performing very, very well. And Christine didn't mention for her girl, as an international student that was a top student at their school last year, a Vietnamese girl. So there's opportunities for students to excel, but they also get the balance between having a lifestyle and extra activities. And I know how stressful life is for a number of international students, or number of students that live in Thailand, that live in Korea and Vietnam, with the extra tutorials and the extra classes. It's quite hard for them, but in New Zealand, it's not the case. Still, we can offer tutoring for students that need it. Students that want to go that extra mile, we have those extra things. But at Boys High as well, is that we offer a number of university papers. So we teach for our year 13 students that are very capable. We will teach them calculus at Massey University, Waikato papers. So it's a good challenge for them as well. Okay, so Palmerston North Boys High School. So we are a big enough school that we can offer a number of subjects, and we have a focus on being an academic school. And there's a number of schools around that would be happy just to have the students at school, but we demand that our students try their very best academically, and we have a wide range of students for that. Examinations are still important, and we have examinations at year 9, year 10, right through to year 13. And we think preparing students for examinations is a very, very important skill for them to do so. We ask our students, we tell our students that they need to have tidy haircuts. So there's no long hair at Palmerston North Boys High School. There's no ponytails. There's no dyed hair. And we do make sure that they wear their uniform with pride and they present themselves nicely as well. One thing that we think is very, very important is the idea of relational teaching. And by what I mean that is that the teacher and the students have a relationship in terms of that the students understand who the teacher is and the teacher understands who the student is. The teacher isn't just at the front writing on the board saying, copy this. They know all their different students. They know where their strengths are. They know where their weaknesses are. And I've mentioned this before as well, is giving them activities out of the classroom. And all of our teachers at school will take a sports team. They will take a cultural activity. And that is, again, that relational idea where students can relate to a teacher in a different environment. Okay, so academic results. And I think we compare very, very well nationally. So 86% of year 12 students NCA level 2, and that's obviously the qualification needed for Thailand is NCA level 2. 79% of year 13 students. And the reason why our number is lower for that one is that a number of our students will be doing vocational programs where they're learning to be a builder, where they're learning to be an electrician, they're learning to drive forklifts. And so they don't actually qualify. 61% of students gain university entrance, and it's quite popular in New Zealand now for students not to actually go to university, that they'll go into work and maybe the place that they work at might sponsor them to do their training a little bit later on. But it's actually now in New Zealand, it's not quite necessary to always go to university. We still need our doctors, we still need our lawyers, we still need our psychiatrists. We need all those skilled people, but it's quite a wide range. It's not necessary all the time to go to university now. And as you can see there's a number of university papers that we do. So 93 university papers, and you can see the results are outstanding for that.
Okay. Let me summarize for the last part first. There's a few slides already. Okay.
Good luck.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. สำหรับในส่วนของ Palmerston North Boy นะครับก็มีนักเรียนทั้งหมดประมาณ 1,800 คนซึ่งเป็นโรงเรียนที่ค่อนข้างใหญ่พอสมควรนะครับแต่ก็เป็นโรงเรียนที่ใหญ่แล้วก็มีนักเรียนอินเตอร์นะครับนักเรียนต่างชาติประมาณ70คนเท่านั้นโดยประมาณเนาะแล้วก็จะมีนักเรียนไทยอยู่ประมาณ 10-15 คนซึ่งก็เป็นสัดส่วนที่ไม่น้อยเลยนะครับก็ถือว่าเป็นโรงเรียนที่ตอบโจทย์นักเรียนไทยมาเป็นระยะเวลานานเหมือนกันนะครับแล้วก็ในส่วนของเด็กๆที่ไปที่โรงเรียนเนี้ยก็จะเจอกับเมือง Palmerston North ซึ่งเป็นซิตี้นะเป็นเมืองใหญ่นะจะมีจำนวนประชากรประมาณ 90,000 คนนะครับซึ่งเป็นเมืองที่มีความปลอดภัยนะครับแล้วก็ใหญ่เพียงพอที่จะสำหรับเด็กนักเรียนในการที่จะใช้ชีวิตนะครับเพราะว่าที่นี่เนี่ยมันก็จะมีมหาวิทยาลัยด้วยซึ่งMassey University แล้วก็มี Vocational School ด้วยเพราะนั้นเนี่ยในเมืองก็จะมีทั้งเด็กมัธยมทั้งเด็กมหาลัยนะครับแล้วก็มีร้านค้าร้านอาหารต่างๆซึ่งทางคุณลันส์บอกว่ามีความหลากหลายมากๆเลยนะครับในส่วนของร้านอาหารอะไรต่างๆเหล่านี้แต่อย่างไรก็ตามคุณลันส์ได้เตือนเอาไว้ว่าในเมืองใหญ่เนี่ยมันก็จะมีจุดที่ไม่ควรไปอะไรต่างๆเหล่านี้ซึ่งเดี๋ยวทางโรงเรียนก็จะบอกน้องๆเองนะครับซึ่งในเมืองใหญ่ที่แต่ละที่มันก็จะมีจุดตรงนี้เหมือนกันนะครับแต่ก็ไม่ต้องกังวลครับเพราะว่าโดยภาพรวมของประเทศนิวซีแลนด์แล้วก็ในเมือง Palmerston North เนี่ยถือว่าเป็นเมืองที่น่าอยู่ทีเดียวเลยนะครับสำหรับโรงเรียนนี้เป็นโรงเรียนชายล้วนเนาะก็เขาบอกข้อดีของโรงเรียนชายล้วนก็คือโอเคมันจะมีข้อดีทำให้เด็กตั้งใจเรียนนะไม่มี distract ก็คือไม่ไขว้เขวต่างๆนาอะไรอย่างเงี้ยนะครับแล้วก็เรื่องของการเรียนเขาก็จะได้รู้ว่านี่คือการสอนเด็กผู้ชายนะ teaching methodology คือวิธีการเรียนการสอนเนี่ยก็จะทำออกมาสำหรับเหมาะกับเด็กผู้ชายโดยเฉพาะนะครับและที่สำคัญก็คือโรงเรียนเนี้ยเป็นโรงเรียนที่มีผลสำเร็จทางการเรียนผลสอบเนาะถือว่าดีมากๆนะครับเป็นระดับท็อปของประเทศเลยนะฮะในส่วนของ NCA Level 2เขามีนักเรียนที่ผ่านนะครับ 86% นะซึ่งสูงกว่าระดับนานาชาติโดยเฉลี่ยคือที่ประมาณ 79% ในส่วนของ Level 3เขาได้ 79% นะครับในระดับนานาชาติอยู่ที่ในระดับประเทศอยู่ที่ 71% ค่าเฉลี่ยนะครับแล้วก็สำหรับนักเรียนที่จะสอบเข้ามหาวิทยาลัยหรือว่าต้องได้ University Entrance นะครับจะต้องของโรงเรียนเนี่ยทำได้อยู่ 61% ในขณะที่ระดับทั่วประเทศเนี่ยโดยเฉลี่ยอยู่ที่ 51% นะครับเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยก็ถือว่าเป็นโรงเรียนที่น่าสนใจครับแล้วก็เป็นโรงเรียนที่ใหญ่เพียงพอที่จะมีคอร์สเรียนที่หลากหลายนะครับแล้วก็สามารถตอบโจทย์นักเรียนได้ทุกรูปแบบไม่ว่าจะเป็นนักเรียนที่เน้นในเรื่องของวิชาการในเรื่องของกิจกรรมต่างๆเหล่านี้นะครับแล้วก็คุณครูก็การเรียนการสอนก็จะพยายามที่จะมีปฏิสัมพันธ์กับเด็กนักเรียนในห้องเรียนแล้วก็รู้จักเด็กนักเรียนด้วยไม่ใช่แค่ว่าสอนไปวันๆนะครับประมาณนั้นนะโอเค Lance back to you
So at year 9 and year 10, the junior years, is that we try to give the students a number of compulsory subjects which we feel are very important for their academic development. However, there's a number of options that they can take out of interest. And obviously students that are 13 years old all the time won't have an idea about what they want to do when they leave school or go to university. So we give them a number of options that they can try, and it's not actually important that they don't understand it. I think I said earlier about things like drama, and drama is one of those subjects at this age that the students can actually do that, and at year 9 it is actually compulsory for a small period of the time. But we feel that it's very good for students to be able to present themselves as well as they can.
So Lance, may I ask how many optional subjects that the students can take for year 9? Because you have
year
5
9, they take
compulsory.
They take 3 subjects. One of them is usually for a full year, and 2 of them are for a half year.
Okay.
Okay,
one
so
full,
the one for
half.
the full year is the one they're most interested in. The 2 for the half year as they're curious about.
Gotcha.
So year 10, there are 2 subjects that they will take. And for Thai students that are perhaps not as good at English, we have ESOL that we can teach them there, and that's English language tuition, which is the second one down. Now that's a subject that some of the Thai students need, but some of them don't as well. So it's actually an optional subject depending on their level of English that they have. And
Gotcha.
I think some of the most popular subjects with our Asian students are actually some of the art subjects, the visual art, photography, design, where they're on computers and doing logos and stuff like that, which is really, really interesting for these students. And often we've found in some of the countries that we've visited, Christine and I, is that those sort of subjects are hobbies. Whereas in New Zealand, when you're doing them at year 13, that can help get you into universities. So year 11, it becomes less compulsion. So there's only 3 compulsory subjects at year 11. Now, the English language tuition subject, which is mainly for our international students there, they do the same course as what the domestic students do, but the classes are smaller and the teacher has an understanding about students that are learning English as a second language. So that's important. And as you can see, is that the subjects now start to vary into what are academic subjects and also vocational subjects. You can see there's joinery and mechanical in there, which aren't university subjects, but they're for some of the students that are looking to go in to be a builder. Maybe they're going to be a plumber. Maybe they're looking to do some engineering as well. And we think those subjects are important, especially for fine motor skills.
So that's one thing for year 11. Normally, many schools do not require for science as the compulsory, right? But your school do. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, main reason we do that is that the boys actually like doing science and it's very practical for them as well. So it's one of those subjects that we think is a good addition for them, and to take some choices and they do well at science. The physics, the chemistry are probably our highest achieving subjects at school, along with calculus.
Gotcha. And for year 11, how many subjects in total that they have to study, roughly?
There's 6 subjects that they need to do there, plus health for a couple of periods as well. So they'll do 7 total, but 6.5.
7 in total. Okay. Yeah. Because they have 3 compulsory already. So right. Another 3 for optional and plus 1 health subject, right? That you mentioned.
Yeah. So, and if they choose subjects like physics or biology, is that they don't have to do science then as well.
Okay, understand.
Because they're offered as individual sciences at year 11. So year 12, as you can see, it becomes there's far more choice. And it's typical of all the New Zealand schools is that you now have a good idea about what your career wants to be, where you're going to in university, where you're going vocationally, and we can start separating that off. We have careers advisors at both of our schools, at both boys and girls schools. And so they will sit down at this year and they'll start talking to the students about what they want to do in the future. And I'll talk to them about choices that they actually need to make. And we talk about subjects like architecture, where you think, or about careers like architecture, where you think that things like art, and I think maths and physics are really, really important. But the architecture school wants art. They want creative people and if you didn't know that, then you wouldn't be heading down that pathway. So it's actually really, really important, our career as a team, and they will speak with our international students on quite a regular basis when we meet with them as well. Last one, please. So year 13 is completely optional. And like I said in the previous one, is that they'll meet with the careers team and they'll meet with the deans. And if they're not doing subjects that are conducive for them to go on their careers, then they'll be told that they need to choose different ones as well. The other thing that probably should be mentioned is that students can study over different levels. So even though you're year 13, you can do a year 12 subject, or if you're in year 12, you can still do a year 13 subject. And many of our Asian students will come to us and are very, very strong in calculus. And the year 11 or year 12 maths course is too easy. So we can actually push them up a level, which gives them more choice a little bit later on. So that's one of the advantages about New Zealand. And the same thing goes with English, for example, is that if they're struggling with English, you need to pass year 12 English to get into university. So we can make that course a little bit longer over 2 years to get them into the course that they need to do in New Zealand. Now, one of the things that has been extremely popular for Thai students at our school is the Aviation School. And Massey Aviation is based in Palmerston North. And we've had 4 Thai students go through there. from our school. And I mean, students that are considering that, it's an amazing school, very expensive as all aviation schools are, but it's a very, very school for them to consider going to at Massey, because our first graduate that went through here and then through Massey Aviation is now flying for Thai Airways.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
One thing you mentioned that for the aviation school, do they have to do the school after finishing level 3 or during they're at your school?
So they will do that after level 3, but we have a very, very good relationship with them. And we will take, especially those students that are interested, we will take them down at year 12 and year 13. So they get to go on the simulators, they get to look around, they get familiar with the course as well. We have a boy there at the moment that must be in his 3rd year, I think, that's Thai. And we can connect students, like Christine said, with past students and with present students that are considering different pathways for them. Because I mean, and it's easy for you and it's easy for us. We want students coming to our schools because they want to come to our schools and they need to know all the good things and perhaps not the not so good things about the haircuts, about the rules. We need the students to know that. So when they're coming in here, they're buying into our school and making sure that they are invested in our schools.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
Lance, one last thing about the subjects. Normally in year 11, they study 7 subjects. And how about year 12 and 13? Roughly still 7 subjects.
So year 12 is only 6 subjects.
Mm-hmm.
And year 13 is 5 subjects and they have a study period as well.
โอเคสำหรับในเรื่องของหลักสูตรการเรียนของที่Palmerston North Boy นะครับซึ่งเริ่มต้นตั้งแต่ year 9 เนาะโดยปกติแล้วตั้งแต่year เด็กเนี่ยเขาก็จะมีวิชาบังคับค่อนข้างเยอะนะโดยปกติก็จะประมาณ5 subject ก็คืออาจจะเป็นภาษาอังกฤษเลขพละสังคมและก็วิทยาศาสตร์นะครับแล้วก็น้องๆสามารถที่จะเลือกได้วิชาเลือกอีกประมาณ 2-3 วิชานะครับเช่นกันกับ year 10 นะครับ year 10 วิชาเลือกก็จะประมาณ 2-3 วิชาเช่นกันนะครับพอขึ้นมา year 11 เนี่ยวิชาบังคับของเฉพาะโรงเรียนเนี้ยจะมีภาษาอังกฤษเลขแล้วก็เพิ่ม science มาเพราะว่าเด็กส่วนใหญ่เด็กผู้ชายจะชอบวิชาวิทยาศาสตร์นะครับแล้วก็จะมีให้เลือก3 วิชาแล้วก็มี1 วิชาที่เกี่ยวข้องกับ health ก็คือสุขภาพนะครับเป็นทั้งหมด7 วิชาด้วยกันสำหรับ year 11 ส่วน year 12 เนี่ยเด็กๆทั้งหมดจะมีวิชาบังคับเหลือแค่วิชาเดียวคือภาษาอังกฤษนะครับแล้วก็อีก 5 วิชานะครับก็จะเป็นวิชาเลือกเลยในขณะที่ year 13 เนี่ยจะเลือกเรียนได้ตามใจชอบเลยโดยที่จะเรียนทั้งหมด 5 วิชานะครับเท่านั้นเองแล้วก็จะมี study period เพิ่มเติมนะครับนอกจากนั้นเนี่ยในส่วนของโรงเรียน Palmerston North Boy เนี่ยจะมีลิงก์กับMassey University นะครับก็จะมีในส่วนของหลักสูตรที่ offer ให้ในส่วนของ Aviation School ก็คือการบินนะครับซึ่งการเรียนตรงนี้จะเป็นการเรียนหลังจบและเข้ามหาวิทยาลัยกับ Massey นะแต่ในระหว่างที่อยู่ที่ Palmerston North Boy เนี่ยเขาก็อาจจะมีพาไปดูเป็นพวก simulation ต่างๆอะไรเหล่านี้ด้วยนะครับก็เหมาะเป็นอย่างยิ่งสำหรับน้องๆที่ชอบในเรื่องของการบินนะครับผมโอเค back to you Lance
So co-curricular, and we've discussed that a number of times, but I mean, as we encourage all of our international students to join the co-curricular program because we think A, it's the best way to make friends, and B, it's one of the best ways to learn English. And so we encourage that wholeheartedly, and even students that don't want to do it will revisit that with our team to say, okay, these are some options that you can do. And we help them enroll in the sports. They have an account at school where we have some excess money for them. And then that means that they don't have to worry about taking the money that they might be at the cafe or spending on their mobile phones or apps. There's money at the school dedicated for them to use for sports and activities at school as well. Next slide, please. Okay, this is our team. And so we were a team of 4 before the pandemic, and we've got a brand new team now other than me. So I've been in the role a long time. Minnie, who's on the top, my top right, she's Chinese and she's been in New Zealand since she's been 10, but her husband has been an executive chef at one of the major hotel chains all around Asia. So she's lived in Thailand, so she speaks Thai. She lives in Vietnam, so she speaks Vietnamese. And she's been an amazing addition to our team. And she's a teacher at school as well for the commerce and accounting. Now, Rachel down the bottom she's our accommodation manager. And as you can see, she's extremely friendly. She's great with the kids. She herself has a daughter that's just left school. She has a boy that is in our First 15 rugby team at school as well. Plus she has a couple of younger boys as well. And she's already new in her role. She's already had some of the boys. And I think FIFA stayed with her for a few nights. And you saw, or FIFA, one of the new students at our school, her husband's actually a helicopter pilot. So a Thai boy that came from Hatyoi got to stay with her when he first arrived for a couple of nights. And then the second day that he managed to go up in a helicopter with her husband. So he's been pretty lucky. Next slide, please. Okay, so what both boys and girls high do is that we make sure our teams are dedicated to our international students. Our jobs are to look after the students and to look after, make sure that they're happy. And we know how useless boys are sometimes communicating with their mothers at home. And so we will ask the mothers to say, if they're not ringing you, then we will go find them, we'll give them the phone and you can talk to them there, because boys are a bit hopeless like that sometimes. We get them from the airport. We make sure that we're placing our students and families that suit them. And this is where the application forms are so important, is that put down as much information as you can so we can actually place them in a family that they think is good for them. We offer insurance. We make sure we can help renew visas, and a pathway visa is a great thing for students that are coming here from a young age, because you don't have to reapply year after year, and it makes it very, very easy. We also help manage them going into teams. We help manage their careers. We also help manage their pastoral care. And as you know, the last 3 years have been very, very challenging for international students. And so that guidance, support, and making sure that they're happy. And there's students that haven't seen their families for 3 years. And that's really, really sad for them. But making sure that they're happy is our job.
There's one thing about the host family. I mean, the boarding students stay in the boarding.
Yeah.
During the school break, do they have to move out from the boarding house to stay with the host families?
Yeah, good question. And before the pandemic, usually in July they did. The April holidays and the September holidays, we've got a number that we have a magic number in the hostel, and it's about 8 students. If 8 students are staying in the college house, then we'll keep the dormitory open. But if not, we'll put them in homestays. And I actually think students experiencing homestays is actually quite good for them. Going into a family, being in a different environment is actually pretty good for them. But we've been very, very lucky with the hostel in terms of supporting international students and making sure throughout the first lockdown that we had, the hostel stayed open. All of our 14 international students that were in the boarding hostel stayed in the hostel, and they've been very, very good to us as well. So we're very lucky.
So in the future, it means that during April or September, which is the break, the students, if you have a good number, like more than 8 students, the dorm will be open.
Even in July, if we have enough students
July
in
as
there,
well.
the dorm will be open. But if not, and if we're talking to parents about it, it's not actually a bad thing that they actually have to go out and integrate with a family and talk to them and be part of a family. It's not a terrible thing. And some of the students request that. Can I be in a homestay family over the break?
Gotcha. Is it an extra cost for that, or is all included?
No. So the hostel fees and the holiday placements are different. So what we do is that there's approximately about 60 days that the hostel wasn't open, and so the hostel is probably around about $2,000 to $3,000 more expensive per year than what a homestay family is.
So you mean that for these 60 days, which is the school holidays, it's not included for the accommodation, and the parents will have to pay extra for this, either stay in the dorm or in the host families.
We quote for that on the invoice at the start of the year. So it's not a cost that they have to contribute to as a surprise. It's always outlined very, very clearly on the invoice. But yeah, it is an extra cost on top of boarding.
Okay, gotcha. Understand.
Okay.
All right, back to you.
Okay, so we have pretty amazing facilities for a state school, and We have a 1800, you've seen the hall, 1800 seat hall for the students. But we also, where my office is, we have an auditorium, and that's a 400 seat auditorium where we have our productions with Girls High, where we can have separate meetings, where we have presentations. The science laboratories have all been upgraded, and I think in some of the pictures earlier, you'll see that the science is very, very practical here in New Zealand, and there's lots of experiments to help the students learn. Technology is another thing that's quite important at Boys High, because we realise the vocational skills. So we have 2 dedicated woodwork rooms with CNC cutters. We're also, part of a new thing that we're doing this year is that we're actually building houses at school, and transportable houses, and they'll be moved off and they'll be used for social housing in New Zealand as well. We have 2 gymnasiums. We have 2 dedicated gymnasiums, which is amazing facilities. We also have a 25-metre heated indoor pool. And so we're very, very lucky in terms of our facilities, not both culturally and not in the classroom, but also for the sporting as well. Cricket is not very popular in Thailand, I know. We've had a Thai boy play cricket here before, but we have a covered indoor cricket. We have multiple computer suites, but they're actually not required anymore, because most of the students will be starting to bring their own devices to school. And by doing that, they learn a lot online in their senior years. The library is important to us because as I said earlier, there's silent reading every afternoon, and the sections that they have, there's a massive fiction section where they have a number of books that they can choose from. And the hostel, 190 students we can have in the hostel. Now, homestay is the other side to boarding, and this one here is a boy from Hong Kong on the left and the top, and he was originally in the hostel, and he's an outstanding student. But I think during the pandemic, the hostel became quite tight. The boy down the bottom right is Thai, and he's the one that I talked about earlier about being on a farm. And so he's an amazing kid, and he's been here since year 9, and he's only year 11. So he's technically was our youngest international student. And Perry above is also from Hong Kong, and he's been here, he's lived on a farm, and now he's moved back into the city. So making sure that students have that relationship with our accommodation manager to be able to talk to them if they're not quite happy in a homestay is vital. And that's something that we work really, really, really hard on. But we also make sure that they actually have to try a little bit as well to be in the homestay, where sometimes they just say, oh, it's too hard. But we actually talk to the homestay, we talk to the boys to make sure that relationship can work. So College House, we have spoken about extensively, and the resources that they have there and the facilities they have there. There's 10 masters there that look after the boys, and they're all school teachers, from reasonably old to quite young. And so they get a variety of different experiences, but they talk about in College House as a brotherhood, and it's in our prospectus as well, is that the boys feel like they're all brothers, and they live together, they play sport together, and they are very, very independent from the school, and are very important to the school in terms of the school spirit as well, because College House is a vital part of Palmerston North Boys High School. 2 gymnasiums, a music room, they have a TV room, table tennis, an amazing dining room with state-of-the-art facilities in there. And the dormitories are, although they're open, there's sort of separate rooms where 2 beds are. So to get the better idea of how it is, I encourage you to look at the College House video. And there's a couple of College House videos that you might be able to see as well. There's one that one of our Thai students did, and that's all in Thai for the parents. And I can share that with you later, Seth. And there's also one that's done by College House in itself. But yeah, like I say, College House is very, very popular with our Thai students.
Right. And so how many beds are there in one room normally? 2 beds, right? How about the young ones?
There's two beds generally. There's a couple of dorms that they've got 3 or 4 beds. So they sort of changed the configuration around, and there's a lot of space. It's not like bunks. There's no bunks in College House. They're all single beds. And some of them are turned into bigger rooms type thing. So yeah, there's a bit of a variation, but generally, as you said, Seth, there's 2 beds per room.
Okay. All right. Let me summarize a little bit before we have to
Sure.
wrap up right now. Okay. สำหรับที่ผ่านมานะครับเขาพูดถึงกิจกรรมต่างๆของโรงเรียนนะก็จะมีทั้งหมด57กิจกรรมซึ่งค่อนข้างเยอะเลยทีเดียวนะครับแล้วก็ได้พูดถึงทีมในการดูแลของเขานะครับก็จะมีเจ้าหน้าที่หลักๆ3ท่านนะครับที่ดูแลในส่วนของแอดมินนะแล้วก็ซึ่งเจ้าหน้าที่ก็มีบางท่านที่สามารถพูดภาษาไทยด้วยแล้วก็เป็นครูด้วยนะครับผมสำหรับในทีมอินเตอร์เขาก็จะดูแลนักเรียนอินเตอร์แล้วก็จัดหา host family จัดปฐมนิเทศจัดรถรับส่งสนามบินแรงต่างเหล่านี้ซัพพอร์ตนักเรียนต่างชาติทั้งหมดเลยเพราะนั้นไม่ต้องกังวลเลยเพราะว่าเป็นทีมที่มีประสบการณ์มากๆนะครับในส่วนของหอพักเนาะสำหรับเด็กๆที่อยู่หอพักมันก็จะมีช่วงที่ปิดเบรกหอพักก็จะปิดนะครับก็อาจจะต้องย้ายไปอยู่กับ host family ซึ่งจะเป็นค่าใช้จ่ายเพิ่มเติมแต่ว่าถ้ากรณีที่มีจำนวนหนึ่งที่อยู่ในหอพักเขาก็จะเปิดหอพักให้ซึ่งก็จะมีค่าใช้จ่ายเพิ่มเติมเช่นเดียวกันนะครับในส่วนของ facility ต่างๆเขาก็จะมีทั้งหมดเนี่ย368ที่นั่งสำหรับ auditorium นะแล้วก็มี14 labนะครับมี2จิม2ฟิตเนสสนามสระว่ายน้ำ25 เมตรเป็นอินดอร์นะครับ3 คอมพิวเตอร์สูตรนะครับแล้วก็สำหรับหอพักนักเรียนเนี่ยจะมีทั้งหมด190เตียงนะครับทั้งเด็กเล็กและเด็กโตโดยที่หอพักเนี่ยก็จะมีจำนวนทั้งหมดในห้องนอนหนึ่งนะครับก็จะประมาณ2คน3คนหรือ4คนนะครับอยู่ประมาณนี้นะโอเค so Lance, back to you to wrap up for the final part, please.
I think what's important for the parents is knowing that the people that are looking after them here in New Zealand, and we will often be traveling to Thailand every year, and to have the ability for parents to come and meet with us and talk to us and understand who we are and what the school is, but also for us to pass on in the same, and we've learned much better over the past about how we can communicate online and like we are doing now, is that to be able to talk to parents, Thai parents that have sent their students here, to talk to boys that are here, to talk to boys that have been here is really important. It's very accessible for us. And I think in the coming years is that parents will do far more research, and we're able to help you with that. And we're very happy to. Every year we will have an alumni dinner in Bangkok, because it's our biggest dinner that we ever have. And I mean, I think we often do it combined with the girls. And so we might have 50 or 60 people there with families that we've known for a long time, with the students. And then also it's a good opportunity for potential students and parents to come along as well, where they can talk to people directly about their experiences. And we only want students that are coming here that really want to come to Palmerston North Boys. And if they like the idea of single sex, if they like the idea of academic and lots of activities, then come and choose us. If you want to just come here for different reasons, then there's other schools for you to go, because we will, in the end, we want students to come to New Zealand and they choose a school that's the best for them.
Okay, Lance. All right. Thank you so much for your time today, I think. And it's pretty much information, and it's a good thing that the parents know before by talking to you today. So if there is any other questions, I will let you know. And
Sure.
Thanks again for joining us today.
Welcome, and it's been my absolute pleasure. And like I say, is that I'm happy to speak to girls, and as Christine will be happy to speak to the boys, because I've got a girl at Girls High School. Christine's got boys here. So we're absolutely happy for that to happen. Now, we also have a YouTube channel, which I think we've shared with you in the past, where we have a number of vlogs with boys that have their day at school. And there's also interviews with the school, the mayor, with the police, with a number of different people. So that's worthwhile directing to if people just want to have something to do to look about the schools. But Seth, my pleasure talking to you for the first time. Well, not talking to you, well, talking to you for the first time. And I look forward to having dinner with you in maybe a week or two. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And you are coming to Thailand, so I will let them know that if the parents would like to talk to you, so we can arrange that.
Absolutely, Seth. So my pleasure, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, Lance.
Bye.